So, did Final Fantasy VII Rebirth hurt Square Enix beyond repair? Of course not. I swear to God, if I see one more headline about Final Fantasy 16 and Rebirth couldn't save Square or extraordinary loss for Square just to get clicks, I'm going to lose my mind.
That's a good one.
Yes, I know. It's all marketing. They need people to click on the site to get that revenue, but come on, have a little dignity. So many are only going to read the headlines without even looking into the actual details. However, I want to go over what is actually being revealed and what we can expect from Square Enix going forward. There has been a lot revealed over the last couple of months, talked about from tweets, board meetings, financial reports, analysis, and so much more in between. So I want to go over all of that. Then finally, what does this mean for the games that we as gamers want and will get from this company that is Square Enix going forward? There's a lot to go over. I've got my own opinions. Sorry if I sound heated at some points, but you know what? I'm a little passionate about this, especially after this last month of just seeing all these headlines and going, use your brains, people. I of course want to ask you, what are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know down below in the comments when it comes to Square Enix and what games you still want to see from them, and what do you think is actually going to be made over the next couple of years? And actually, I want to add just one more broader question that I just kind of love asking when it comes to any type of video like this. What is your favorite Square Enix game of all time if you've enjoyed one? Go back to the 90s if you want to, mid-2000s, you name it. I want to know your favorite Square Enix game ever released. And if you happen to enjoy the video and discussion videos like this, then leave us a like down below so that we can see that in the old algorithm, and that tells us that you like these type of videos and that we'll make more of these. And if you really want to, then maybe hit that sub button to the channel as well so we can actually reach our end year goal of 5K subs. All right, enough beating around the bush, let's get into this. One thing I want to mention real quick is if you have seen this kind of information already, or if you may potentially seen it in a different video, we have timestamps down below laying out exactly what we're going to talk about. So if you're not interested in any of the information that we just got recently, and you want to skip ahead to my own personal thoughts and opinions or just anything like that, timestamps down below, you can check that all out. But first, we're going to go over what is released to the public from Square Enix and their plans right now. Then I want to go into some stuff of that almost all the outlets are forgetting to mention, or they kind of mention it, but they kind of tiptoe around it. Things like talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth sales and other games and things like that. Then finally, what it means for games going forward. What can we expect from Square and what we'll probably not see and why? Again, timestamps down below. Let's get into the first topic. Now, when it comes to the information we got from Square and Square's president, Takashi Kiryu, the company is looking to revise the group's approach to the development of high-definition games with the intention of being more selective and focused in the allocation of development resources. That is a direct quote, by the way. This is coming after they expect to take a 22.1 billion yen hit, or $141 million when converted to USD. Now, while not stated outright, many are assuming smaller games and projects that have been worked on either have or will be cut very soon. This lines up with earlier news this year that Square decided to conduct a fundamental review of all of its development process in an attempt to improve the quality of its games, according to Bloomberg. This decision actually followed the appointment of Takashi as the new president. Now, some of this is not new to Square at all. We've seen this across the industry, and like many in the industry after 2020 to 2023, the publisher is simply looking to reduce the cost in development and focus on its in-house projects. Some of this is good, some of this is bad, as we've clearly seen from all the layoffs, and a lot of these companies focusing on their bonuses and their investors and not the actual product that they're releasing. In fact, if we actually go back just a little bit more into 2023, this came after Square wanted to start identifying existing IPs with the potential to be upgraded to what they call AAA status. Now, the big question obviously is what would actually qualify all these smaller games to get this rating of AAA status is anyone's guess, since, let's be honest, Square Enix has always had crazy expectations for its games, even when they sell, let's say, 1 million copies or 5 million copies. And this can go all the way back to like 2010. This is nothing new for Square Enix. Combined with all this news is actually some changes that are going to some of the studios, aka the naming of some of these studios. For example, Creative Business Unit was changed to Creative Studio. CBU 3 is now called Creative Studio 3. If that name sounds familiar, it really should, because that is where Yoshi P is actually now the studio head instead of simply the general manager from beforehand. For those of you who don't know, Creative Business Unit 3 was what brought Final Fantasy 16 to life. Finally, to wrap this all up, Square Enix actually saw its stock prices raise 6% in Japan. Investors feel that the bad news has run out and hope for a recovery going forward. Not gonna lie though, I did not see the stock actually going up 6%, even if it is only in Japan. So here's hoping it works out. But as of right now, that's all the information that has been provided to us and that we've been able to find as of May 2nd, 2024. So with all that being said, let's get into some more personal stuff, if you will. Now, obviously, everything we went over is a lot of information, and this is covered pretty much across the board, no matter where you look, whether it's small YouTube videos or big articles. In fact, we can also expect a quarterly financial report in the next couple weeks, since the first 4 months of the year have now passed in 2024. This will hopefully include plans for the next following year, sales data, and more. But that's for another couple weeks, and I want to talk about this right now. Speaking of which, I also want to point out a few things that no one else is really talking about, like I stated back in the beginning of the video. And to start that off, I want to get into the $141 million mentioned above that Square is expected to eat. Now, if you pay attention to any amount of gaming news, especially when it comes to Square Enix, then it really should not be a surprise that Square has lost this money. And it's not, let me repeat, not because of the games like Final Fantasy 16 or Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. While those games have sold really well, it was never going to balance the books for Square's terrible decisions for going in on things like NFTs, failed live service games like the Avengers and First Soldier, and everything in between. Every time this is brought up when it comes to sales numbers going down for stock or revenue or anything like that, it's because there is so much red that only a few patches of green are not going to balance everything. So the next time you see an old comment pop up on anything new going forward saying, well, Final Fantasy 16 only sold 3 million in a week, or it couldn't stop this from happening, take a second and think about how is one game really going to balance the whole book for an entire company and their other failed projects that range from super bad, aka the NFT focus, to whatever, like certain live service games. I mean, heck, Square had some amazing games in the form of Neo the World Ends With You, Octopath, and many more, yet failed to even market some of these games. I guess the NFTs couldn't spare a few thousand to help push some of these actual good projects. I may not run a multi-million-dollar company here, Square, but maybe helping some of those smaller projects reach new people would actually sell more to actually help them reach those crazy sales numbers you always want. And by the way, I have to say this in almost every video that has to deal with Square. Don't expect a small IP like The World Ends With You or anything like that to reach the levels that Final Fantasy VII has over almost 30 years of being out. It's ludicrous. I know Japan has different standards when it comes to what to expect from a company and everything like that, but serious, some of their standards are just way too high. Speaking of sales, I want to go off topic just a little bit. I want to briefly mention the topics of sales with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This has been a hot topic for the last month or so, ever since the game released back at the end of February 2024. People calling it a flop to talking about how it's sold under half of what Remake made. And I just got to say this, I am so freaking sick and tired of seeing this. So apologies for going off, but I've got to get this off my chest. First off, Remake released 2 months into a worldwide lockdown where everyone was home and could actually play video games. Second, the PlayStation 4 base at that time was over double what the current PlayStation console is right now. Third, sequels rarely sell better than the first game. Not to mention, many are waiting for the PC release, which actually, based on the trailers, should hopefully be within the next month. So that's actually awesome. That's way better than what Remake had. Or simply fact that they're simply waiting for the third game, since this is a trilogy, which again, some people don't like. I personally do, but you know, everyone has their own opinion. The fourth reason is some just not wanting to return to Rebirth after Remake due to simply not liking certain things that they played, which is totally fine, by the way. If you don't like a particular game, then yeah, don't come back and play the sequel, because you shouldn't expect some huge change after the first game. It just rarely happens. Fifth, and this is kind of a big one right here, the sales that we have seen across the industry from 2020 to 2022 have made the industry believe that they can see those sales continue to grow without the natural decline that we should have seen pre-2020 and then grow from there. I mean, let's think about this logically for a second, right? If you have these huge sales due to something that is not normal, and then all of a sudden that thing ends, aka the pandemic and everything, then you should expect your numbers to go back down. That's just gonna happen. It really is. I hate to break it to people. And again, I don't own a multi-million-dollar company, and you would think that some of these companies would know this, but I would think just simply using basic arithmetic logic that would happen. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. If someone wants to prove me wrong down in the comments below, please do, but that just seems a little odd in my personal opinion when it comes to that. I mean, heck, let's imagine a world where 2020 did not happen. Sales and charts would simply have continued to climb like normal for the most part, not some steep climb and then a dip or anything like that. Now, can I confirm this? Of course not. I can't go into an alternate timeline or anything. That's kind of cool that would be, but simple logic can kind of paint this picture right there. And finally, the last thing I have to mention before going on to the actual topics we're supposed to be talking about in this video is that Rebirth released during a time when inflation is increasing around the world, people are having less time to play games, people have less money to spend on games, and just many more that I could probably get into, but we'd be here for a while. Heck, Square itself, I'm gonna definitely nag on Square for this one, did a terrible job at marketing one of the greatest deals that they had with Rebirth. There was a ton of marketing for Rebirth, yes, but they had one of the best deals that if you pre-ordered Rebirth, you could actually get the first game Remake completely for free before the game released. And yet Square's out here saying, oh no, you don't actually have to play Remake or anything like that. You could have marketed this to so many people and made so much more money if you simply said, hey, by the way, you didn't play Remake? That's okay. We've got this bundle over here that basically gives you the game for free to try out right now. And then when Rebirth releases, guess what? Now you know exactly what's happening in the story and the gameplay and everything like that. Also, one side note I literally just thought of as I'm writing this script is that when it comes to this particular game and whether or not the sales didn't do as well, because I'm sure they probably didn't do as well as Remake did initially, this is kind of more of an evergreen game. Sony is covering a lot of the costs when it comes to this whole entire Remake project. So don't think Square's really getting that hurt by this. Okay, I could obviously keep going on with this, but I think you kind of get the point, okay? It just irks me every time I see these kind of headlines and everything. So sorry, had to get off my chest though. It just, again, irks me every time I see this. Moving away from that now, let's move into our last point, which is the games going forward that we can expect from Square. We've gone over the information that was provided to us, and we've gone over some topics that a lot of other people are not really covering that I wanted to at least provide to you. And now the big one. What about the games? What is going to happen? What can we expect going forward, and what can we expect from Square? Well, I don't think anyone really needs to worry about things like the Remake Part 3 or Final Fantasy 17 or Kingdom Hearts 4. Those games sell well, do good in reviews, and everyone is generally happy. Like we stated in the beginning of the video, Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy VII Remake did amazing for Square, both sales-wise and bringing in new players. Heck, recently this year in 2024, Square said 16, yes, 16, that so-called controversial game that you see online and everything like that, expanded to way more new and younger players. So yeah, I think it did just fine. However, moving away from those games though, not everything is positive for all the other games. Games like Forspoken, Babylon's Fall, and Avengers did not do well at all over the last few years, so don't expect Forspoken 2 or anything like that. Couple that with Square looking at all of its games to see what can be made into quote-unquote AAA and provide it with more resources, it's already pretty clear to see that not every game is going to be able to get that, obviously. One example of a game I can think of that will probably get canned / won't get into the game for either quite some time or ever is unfortunately The World Ends With You. First off, I have to say, if you have not played The World Ends With You or the sequel Neo The World Ends With You, you are truly missing out. Those two games are amazing and I will not hear any slander about it. However, unfortunately, the game did not sell well at all, at least based on what Square's expectations were, even though the games were received well by both fans and critics alike. Just go look at reviews. Everyone, for the most part, agrees they're pretty good games. However, this game does have something in common with Rebirth in terms of how certain parts of it were handled, and that is the marketing. I stated before that Square did not market this game at all. I remember seeing the reveal trailer for Neo and being super excited about it. I loved the original back on the DS, but there was absolutely no marketing up to the release of this game, aka Neo. I mean, heck, if someone like me who has kept up to date on most things gaming and gaming news barely sees anything about this game, what hope did Square have for the average consumer? For those of you who don't know, those of us, yes, you and me, by the way, who keep up to date on gaming news, watch trailers, live streams, discussion videos, and more, are actually a very small minority when it comes to the total amount of gamers out there in the world. So The World Ends With You did not stand a chance, which again just makes me super sad. I love the heck out of the first two games that are currently out, and I absolutely wish that we could see a third. But after this report from Square and the fact of how long it went from going from the first game to the second game, I know it's going to be unfortunately a while, and I'm super sad about that. If we move on to other games, I have seen tons of comments on social media and other video comments talking about how people are super worried about other games like Dragon's Quest, Outriders, and other small games that people would love to see sequels to or remakes or anything like that, but now it's definitely not looking like it's going to happen. On one hand, I understand cutting back on projects after the last couple of years. It's been happening across the industry for both good and bad reasons. That being said, if Square had not focused on things like NFTs and other stuff that everyone told them was going to fail, then we would not have to be canceling these small projects that could eventually actually take off and do well. Not all of them, mind you. Not every single project ever in the world takes off and does well, but a good chunk of them probably would do well if they had been able to focus things like development costs and marketing into those particular projects and not into something stupid like NFTs or anything like that. What is the right move going forward? Square has most of its games on PC, PlayStation, and Nintendo even. That's assuming that the Switch can actually handle it though. And with more games slowly actually coming over to Xbox. Now, I'm not going to get into why exactly Xbox and Square don't have as good a relationship as the others, or why certain games don't appear on Xbox right from the get-go, because we actually have a full video on that, and it's still pretty current in terms of the news on the channel. So go check it out. Just look for the thumb that you're seeing on screen right now. It goes into all the details right there. One thing I can definitely think of when thinking about this particular question is simply trying to release games on PC the same day as console. Square tends to release its PC games later, or even if it's a month or two, even up to a year. That would definitely benefit. But from a lot of developer interviews that I've seen over the years, and even more recently, games like 16, 7 Remake, and so on, yes, I know they have their exclusives in terms of Sony and everything like that, they prefer to actually make a game on one platforms in terms of these developers and everything, and then port it over to PC and other platforms like that. On one hand, this does suck though if you're a PC gamer, but at the same time, part of me understands it because that means that the port can generally be good. I know 7 Remake didn't have the best port or anything like that, but here's hoping that Final Fantasy 16 does have a good port. I mean, let's be honest when it comes to PC ports. The last couple of years as of the recording of this video have not been the greatest. Not all games, mind you, but a good amount. Anyone remember Jedi Survivor? Star Wars? Yeah, that was... I don't want to visit that game ever again. Regardless, we as people on the outside can only speculate about what the correct answer is. And whatever that answer is, we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds for Square when these changes start being implemented. I just hope that a lot of the smaller games, including things like The World Ends With You, can be given another chance, whether it's via another publisher or something can be done down the line. And I'm sure those of you who are watching this have similar thoughts when it comes to other games that you particularly love, but are probably going to get the hammer, just like this game. Time is only going to tell though, unfortunately, but here's hoping. One thing is for sure though, the investors believe good times are ahead, and we can 100% expect to still see things like the PC release of Final Fantasy 16, the OCP we believe in, and Remake Part 3, which should be releasing sometime in early 2027. If you want to know more about that, we have an entire breakdown of the Ultimania that I bought here and why that time frame seems to match up pretty well. With all that now finished and me rambling on as much as I possibly can, I want to turn the question to you now, and I want to ask you, what do you think is going to happen with Square over the next year or so? What games do you think they're going to focus on, and what games got the unfortunate hammer? Let us know what you think down below in the comments, and we will try to apply as much as we possibly can. Also, by the way, before I completely end this, I want to give a big thank you to all of you. Yes, you watching this particular video, and just everyone who has watched our videos over the last couple months. Our channel here at Direct Gaming has grown a ton in the last 2 months, and we are super close to hitting our year-end goal of 5K subs. Our analytics show that more views are returning for each video, so if you enjoy these type of discussion videos, please consider hitting that like button. Or at the very least, leave a comment down below, an emoji, doesn't matter, but it helps us out a ton. With all that being said though, I've been Tom with Direct Gaming. Thank you so much again for watching the video. I hope you have a great day and week, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. And let's see what the future of gaming holds when it comes to Square Enix. Until next time, everyone, Johnny.